TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark savage.
Streaming live at truthseekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? We're now locked into another episode of the TruthSeekah podcast. I'm excited and delighted to be here with you guys tonight. I have an awesome show planned, an awesome guest lined up. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, and we finally got it to work. So we're going to jump into this interview here very quick. I want to give a quick shout out to some of the people who are supporting right now on patreon.com. So everybody who's my monthly supporters, you guys get free music that's unreleased week to week. We just put up a new song yesterday, brand new track that I released. It's available. Getting so much good feedback from that song. It's a song called Alpha. And so to, what that song means, the name of the title, you have to actually listen to the song to find out. So everybody who is supporting on Patreon, thank you guys so much for what you're doing there. You are making it so where independent creators such as myself, musician, podcaster, is able to live month to month from what you guys help us do there and fund what we're doing. It means so much that you guys are helping over there. So head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah to sign up to give. And quick shout out to the newest members of the TruthSeekah family on Patreon. We have Tina Carter. Tina, thank you so much. You've been here watching every broadcast that we do for probably the past month. I've seen you in the chat room holding it down. Alan, somebody signed up just the name Alan. Not really sure who you are, but Alan, thank you so much for what you're doing. And Josh Austin, and then Adam Starseed. Thank you guys so much for what you guys are doing. It means the world to me that you guys actually care and want to see me release more music and do more interviews and all this good stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest tonight. Tonight I'm speaking with Hope Medford from the group Medicine for the People. She does so much other stuff. She is bringing healing through the art, through music, creativity. She is a percussionist. She deals with healing. She's an environmentalist. She's a painter, artist, and she's a mother. She does so much stuff. I really don't even know where to go with the interview. So I have my questions that I want to ask. So hopefully tonight we'll be able to get into some discussion. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
Oh, yeah. So like I said, we've been trying to make this happen for a while. The time zones are a crazy issue that I have to deal with podcasts. I talk to people all over the world, and it's always trying to pin it down and remember and do the math. It's always it's always funny dealing with it, but we got it to work. So again, welcome to the show.
First your appearance.
Yeah, totally. So there's so much to talk about. And so there's so many levels that we can connect on. I want to say thank you, first of all, for the music. When I found Medicine for the People, probably 2014 or so,
Yeah.
It was when I was going through an encounter and just having my awakening experience, and you guys came on and, were pretty much the soundtrack for my awakening. You, Trevor Hall, and then had the chance to meet you guys in New Orleans. I seen you guys in New Orleans, and we met there and just connected. So I want to kind of start there, because your music has been a catalyst for awakening for me, right? And then for so many people. I mean, there's tribes and families of people who have been impacted by the music and been taken on spiritual journey. Talk a little bit about the music being a catalyst for promoting spirituality and essentially taking people down that path.
Sure. Yeah, great question. Thank you for bringing that up. And, the way I see it and the way I feel it is that sound is a frequency, right? And I guess they even said, in the beginning there was the word. And I feel like that word and that sound is a frequency and it's a vibration. And ultimately, I believe we're all made of energy, and we're all just a vibration. We're vibrating energy. And so we're made up of frequencies. And so the reality is that we all have a biorhythm, and that rhythm can be in sync or it can be out of sync. And I feel like a lot of time when there's disharmony or disease in our culture, we get out of sync in our rhythms, right? And particularly, I think, in American culture, there's a lot of lack of music and, rhythmic music. There's a lot of disharmony and discordious music as well. But it's overall, we see a lot of depression in the American culture. I mean, I heard something about 40% of people are on antidepressants in American culture. I don't know if that's true. I hope it's not, but we are aware of that being true. There are other cultures that I've spent a good amount of time in where I see music is more prevalent and people are happier. And I have to believe that that there is a correlation between those two things. I first, as you mentioned, began as a percussionist and will always be a percussionist at heart, a drummer. And when I first really started getting more and more serious about drumming, I went to West Africa and I lived with a West African family. And the master drummer in his family, the father told me that he would be called to households to actually heal people with his drumming, and that was passed on from father to son. It was a lineage that you were born into being a drummer. Not just anybody could pick up a drum, actually. Wow. You had to be born into being a drummer in their tribe. And but then they were taught rhythms specifically that were used for healing. I also know from my own research, and I worked my own work as a midwife. I was actually a licensed and certified midwife for a number of years, practicing natural, holistic, out-of-hospital birthing. That there are ancient birth rhythms that go all the way back to Egyptian times. And so rhythms and drumming and music have been used in powerful rites of passage, such as birthing, the human experience beginning, and for healing from shamans in all cultures around the world. So I feel like for myself, to bring it home, that I never had the intention of being a professional musician. And I know plenty of people that do. But for me, I was always just on a journey to serve humanity in whatever way that was shown to me. And that was always my prayer. And drumming for me was a joy and a spiritual practice that I did along the way on the side of the other work that I was doing, which originally, started with training as a midwife and attending births. And then I, as you mentioned, got involved and helped start a nonprofit in Portland, Oregon, where I actually helped start a community farm that was primarily an education center for teaching people how to grow organic food, teaching permaculture, as well as environmental and social justice issues. And on that land, we would bring youth groups out, and I would teach drumming out in the garden, drumming with nature. And a lot of times the at-risk youth that would be interacting with the drums would either be freaked out or really empowered by the use of a drum. First of all, it's a bit overwhelming to feel like they could have this loud of a voice, right? Because the drum is seen as such a loud voice. But then when they actually are invited into it in a welcoming way that shows that they're not going to fail, creating a very safe, community-oriented way to get involved in music and specifically with rhythm, that then it turns into an empowerment process. And so that has always been the heart of it for me. Was at that farm is actually where I met Nahko. I guess it was probably 11 or 12 years ago now. And the day we met, he came out to one of the bonfires we were having under the full moon, and I was drumming by the fire. And he showed up with Max Ribner, who's our horn player, and the two of them started jamming along. And then within about 20 minutes, Nahko was yelling. He's like, "We've got to do this. This is amazing. We've got to play together." And we had our first practice the next day and our first gig that week. And I certainly never knew from around that fire that we would end up playing for hundreds of thousands of people and that it would become a job for me. But I just always stayed true to that feeling of sharing this love, through the stage. And, the first times I got on stage, I really felt like it wasn't me. Like, I didn't want to be on stage. But then my friends had a conversation with me, sharing with me the perspective that actually when you're up there, you have the opportunity of sharing a prayer through the music with more people, as many people as, are coming to this and that can hear you. And so that rang true for me. And I realized it's all about your intention when you're on the stage and what you're doing there with your energy. And so I've always held that for myself as being a channel and just really opening my energy as a channel and protecting myself in the way that I'm only letting in love and light. So I'm specific about how I'm open, but also allowing that energy to flow through me and go to the audience and be as strong of a healing energy as possible for the people there present. And that's always been very powerful for me. And honestly, that journey and that experience of being that channel on stage and with Medicine for the People for so many years is part of why I was able to maintain the really rigorous lifestyle of daily touring.
Whenever we connected a couple years ago, and I contacted you about possibly doing a song together, and we did the song "I Return," and it's a beautiful song. I get to this day, there's so many people like that's their song. Like out of all my work, it's that song, and it's so beautiful because it the essence of it just to help you to ground and to return back to nature, to source energy, and really just the focus of nature with that song. So thank you so much again for being a part of that. But whenever I reached out to you for it, you wanted to check me out and see what I'm about, what I do, and then so you went to my Facebook page, went to my website, and you've seen a lot of religious articles and the mention of Jesus and things like that. So you wanted to make sure that I knew what you were about, right? And just to make sure that I was cool with it, from coming from a religious background and standpoint. So studying what I have and studying the comparative theology, we start seeing the different streams of whether it's religion or tradition that's the same. And that's what I study versus what makes us different, like what makes us the same. So tapping into music. Music is a universal language. All the religions practice it. All the religions deal with music. So dealing with music in the church culture, like there's a big difference of singing a song about God or about the Creator than singing a song to the Creator. And when you do that, you tap in to this special place. You essentially go into this meditative trance state, leave this atmosphere of what we know to be real, and we tap into another realm, and we deal with energies. There's love and stuff that comes through, like you're saying, even in the churches. And this is the beautiful thing, is that it knows no boundaries. It just is. It's universal law. It's truth. So talk a little bit about the place that you go to, like, because I love seeing somebody perform, and people used to always tell me, they say, you want to engage the crowd, make sure you're working the crowd, that's good, but I love to see somebody close their eyes and just tap out and tune in and just go somewhere. And that's what you do, and you go there, you're a conduit for the energy to bring it through, and it's of love and light. So talk a little bit about that trance state of going in through music.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because I think a lot of people have told me about that. They say, oh yeah, you close your eyes, or even see your eyes roll back in your head, or, while you're drumming. And it's funny because I don't think I have memory of doing that, because I think I'm so in the moment, and kind of like I said, like spirit is coming through me. So it's not that I can even articulate right now what I'm thinking about, or what that feels like, other than just, reiterating that that I'm completely open, and really allowing this like bliss to just come through. I also, there's a part of it about supporting your bandmates, right? Like supporting the energy that's up there. And I'm always aware of what Nahko is going through when we're on stage together, as well as, where my other bandmates are. So there's a piece of like holding this as a team or as a crew, together on stage, which is really important to me. I really prefer performing with a crew than by myself. Again, because I never felt like the energy is like about me, but I feel like it's about like showing a united front and trying to be as good of an example as possible of, how humanity can represent. And, but yeah, the energy that comes through, sometimes it can be, depending on the gig and how many people are out there, it can also be closing my eyes to focus and like hear it. I think through my inner ear is what I'm also doing. And I'm kind of like listening for what is spirit telling me to play. But it's a non-intellectual space. It's more of just listening and translating what I'm hearing into my hands and into the rhythms that I'm playing. And so I'm actually glad you asked that question, because as I'm talking, I'm realizing that is part of it, is there's a listening to the inner ear that comes through. And, I remember once when I was in India, I spent about 10 months in India when I was 21, doing my own like spiritual pilgrimage. And I went to a place where there was a group called the Sikhs, and that's their religion. And they were doing this attunement of the inner ear to hear God better. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Like they're literally attuning their inner ear to hear the divine more effectively. And even though I didn't really understand it, I still thought, well, why not? I might as well try, right? Mm-hmm. If anything good comes out of it, it'll be worth the effort. And I think I understand it just a little bit more, is just kind of that opening of your own consciousness so that you just hear that inner voice, whether it's intuition or it's actually hearing a sound, speaking to you. But for me, yeah, when I'm on stage and I'm going deep with a large group, in front of me, I feel like it's my kuleana, which is a Hawaiian word. It kind of means responsibility, but it's also a blessing. It's not a weight. It's still very light, even though it's a responsibility, is what that word implies. And I feel like it's my kuleana when I'm on stage to respect the audience by giving them my best and making their time as effective as possible, by showing up and holding space for the music to come through. That my job is to bring through the most healing vibrations that I can. And, that can be very loud and powerful sometimes. I do feel like because I'm a woman drummer, there is a piece that's important that I show up in my strength as well as in my subtlety on stage. And it's also my joy because I have both sides to me, as all of us do in our balanced ways. But as a woman, I do know that when I play strong and I play fiercely, that divine energy also can be an inspiration for other women and girls. Young women, teenagers are often looking for female role models to see women in their strength and using their voice. As you know, there's been, generations globally of women that aren't heard equally as men on our planet, in our government, in the media. So it's always special, and it's always a blessing when we see men and women working together, just like you and I are in this interview right now, sharing space and listening to each other and creating a room for women's voices to be heard. But certainly as a drummer, it's a really unique role because it's kind of more unexpected. There's not that many women drummers out there that we see on stage. So I think that's a piece of it too, is I often feel like I'm both playing for the women out there that really look up and need to see other women really claiming their voice and using it in an empowered way, and as well as playing for the men that also really appreciate and love and respect that, because men want women to be their equals as well. I mean, that's ultimately what we all want. And we're just in that journey of creating that and helping each other. But I do feel like this musical journey for me has also been a part of that piece.
Dealing with the energy, and this is something that I have close friends who have wanted me to look into it, and I haven't really, because dealing with Christianity, most of us in the South where I'm from, it's the Bible Belt, right? And so we hear about Father God, right? And we know that aspect of the masculine, of the father who corrects you, but he teaches you, he guides you, and as a father. And it's beautiful too, because there's a scripture in the Bible that says that he becomes a father to the fatherless. And we have a whole generation of people who are coming up without fathers. And
right.
To understand that the Great Spirit, whatever name you want to call it, is a divine aspect that will become your father, your nurturer. But
right.
we don't deal with the divine feminine, which I think in the Christianity term, it would be the Holy Spirit, which is the loving aspect, the motherly aspect. So I haven't studied much of it, but I've got a lot of friends who are really big into it. I was like, who not better to have on the show than Hope, who is totally, well versed in some of this stuff. I see some of the stuff that you post, and I'm intrigued. Even my wife's intrigued. Some of it sounds far out when we talk about the divine feminine or the goddess energy and stuff like that, and owning up to the person that you created, like these energies and ways for you to connect. And some of it seems out the box coming from a Christian perspective. We got a lot of Christians who watch this show. We got a lot of people who don't claim any religion. But yeah. I guess if I could, go right to it, something that would seem interesting to talk about the moon energy and about how, the women's menstrual cycle is synced with the moon. And in the Christian tradition, that's looked at as like a bad thing, the menstrual cycle. Talk a little bit about that and how that's something that it's supposed to be embraced and empowered as well,
Great. Okay. Thank you. That's a great question. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's interesting. I'm going to start with my own journey a little bit. So I was confirmed into the Presbyterian Church. I have a Christian background, but it was a very open-minded one. And so I'm very familiar and comfortable around Christianity. And then when I got to be about 18, 19, I was invited to like a women's circle at the full moon. And it was a really special place for me. I didn't really know about women's circles before. And it was basically a space where women could come together and hold hands and be peaceful and share open-heartedly, but also talk about what is, goddess energy just being the feminine aspect of God, right? So it's not like it's one person or something, but just that feminine divine energy as the goddess energy, and mother goddess as being the abundance of the earth, she who gives life, she who births humanity, she who gives us our fruits and our foods and kind of celebrates life. It's not an austere take on spirituality like some practices are, but more of a celebration energy. And then the energy of the moon being when we would meet, under the full moon to gather. The moon is obviously, the whole earth is in rhythm with the moon. So the tides of the ocean move with the rhythm of the moon. And a woman's menstrual cycle is in sync with the whole earth. And we have to be, because we are birthing life. Life comes through us. Humanity comes through a woman's womb. So the more in sync we are with the earth, the more in sync, the next generation will be. So the moon is one aspect of that. And it's interesting. I feel like, the moon comes out in, celebrating the moon is celebrating in the nighttime, right? And celebrating the sun, which is sometimes seen as more masculine, is, in the light. And so one could compare the light and the dark and say one is good and one is bad. But what's fascinating is as you delve deeper, what you realize is, like any yin and yang or black and white, they're both potent and powerful, and they actually depend on each other. I studied some Buddhism when I was older, and it talks about a quality called interdependence, and instead of independence, right? Because they're saying nobody's actually independent. Everyone is actually interdependent. Everything actually depends on each other. So like you really can't have light if you don't have the dark, right? You can't have white unless there's something to compare it to, something that's black. Oh, yeah. And so this duality, is critical to have both sides. Yeah. But I think it's also too easy to say one is good and one is bad, whereas you have the opportunity to say they're both just are. They just are. They just exist. So we don't have to judge them as right or wrong. We can accept both, right? It's so anyway, the moon energy and being in the dark, what that is often holding is this energy of mystery and this energy of inner wisdom, intuition, those things that are, that intuition and inner mystery, I think are often seen as more like feminine qualities, right? And then the masculine is more out in the sun and, really heard. And the women's quality is more introspective, and I would not say passive, but I would say, introspective. That deepening within that can happen in the nighttime. And so for myself, I have a strong affinity with the moon. I love the moon and I love the energy of the moon. And I do feel and believe that there is a particular, power or energy that's present within the moon cycles if you sync up with them. But that's available to anyone, man or woman. Also, as you're talking about the menstrual cycle, I appreciate you bringing that up. Like I mentioned, I worked as a midwife for about 8 years, and I've actually attended and assisted with around 450 births, wow. Bringing in a lot of new life into this planet. And my full intention with that work is to make those experiences as sacred and gentle and empowering as possible for both mother and baby, as well as for father and family, and keeping that a connected, holistic experience for the family. And I see birth as the strongest rite of passage that a child will ever go through as they enter this planet, as well as the strongest experience a woman will ever go through, allowing a human being to come through her body. So that empowerment, obviously, and that rite of passage begins with the menstrual cycle. Obviously, we have to have that blood. That blood is the uterine lining, and it's what the baby grows in. If that blood wasn't there, we wouldn't be able to grow a new human being. So there is the need to shed our shame around that blood and to look at that as the seed of new life. And what a blessing it can be. And I know for me to gather with other women and just to have a few conversations in these circles really awakened that awareness for me of shifting from my period being a shameful time into being this beautiful thing where you can actually offer your blood back to the soil. You can put it on a plant and help it grow. You can use it to nourish something. Or at the very least, you can do whatever you do, but do it with a consciousness that you're aware that this is the gift that allows you to be a life bearer on this planet. And it's an amazing gift. And as challenging as carrying a baby for 9 months and then pushing it through your body is, which it absolutely is a sacrifice, on the other hand, I can definitely say it's the most empowering experience I've ever had. And so to see it and to constantly recognize it as an opportunity and as a gift, and yes, that blood is sacred as a result. And so I feel like we've done humanity a disservice by talking about this original sin that we're all born in, and that is connected with a woman's body and coming through a woman's body. When actually, if we open our mind a little bit further, I feel like there's an opportunity to also see how sacred and sensual experience, the fact that it's a part of our body that has the most like sense receptors, that has the most sensation, that it's actually the most gentle births happen, I can say as a midwife, when the energy in the room is as beautiful when the baby comes out as the energy of when a couple create the baby in their bed together. That same love. Obviously, it's a different quality of it, but that quality of being in love and creating a life should be the energy that you feel in the room when the baby comes out into the world. And that woman should be made to feel that way and be honored for opening herself to bring this new life and letting that experience and that frequency be that high of a vibration for our next generation to come into the world. And that it's our responsibility really to allow both a mother and a child to have that intimate, loving, beautiful experience, even when there's challenges in the birth process, to still be respected, that's coming from a sacred place, and that a child's beginning is a beautiful thing that's being honored.
So whenever you, and that's beautifully said. So, and I'm new to all this, but I've just seen pieces of it here and there. So I wanted to get you on to ask you personally, because you're an expert in it versus reading some stuff online and reading articles. It's awesome having a podcast where I get the people who, like, what I'm saying, their life is devoted to this work and this research. Like, people were begging me to research flat Earth. And I'm like, I'm not really going to get into it. And I had one of the most leading experts in the field come on and then school me on the show on it. So it's awesome that I get to have you on here and pick your brain about it. So
thank you.
I kind of have a twofold question. Okay. So dealing with the midwife stuff, were you assisting in the delivery, or were you working more of like the energy, making sure energy in the room, the music soothing, and creating a sacred space, or was you doing both, or what?
I was definitely delivering babies. So my work as a midwife was the complete care provider in the pregnancy, doing all of the care throughout pregnancy, medical testing, as well as emotional support, and talking with a family about what would create the birth room for them in a way that would be as sacred as they want it to be, and what kind of music would they want, and what kind of, do they want candles, do they not? I'm very happy to support people with whatever they want, whatever their spiritual belief is, or if they're atheist. I see myself as a servant in the birth process to the next generation, to that baby that's coming through, as well as, to the spirit of the parents, whether or not they're fully awakened. It's really such sacred energy, no matter what somebody's belief is. When their baby comes through, it is always a powerful experience that can change people and awaken people in new ways. So I was the medical care provider. I was delivering babies. I was doing all of the testing that they would need to have done if that was necessary. Although my approach certainly is to have as little testing and interference as absolutely possible. I'm trained from the National College of Midwifery, but my approach is also to be as hands-off as possible, to allow the natural birthing process, as well as encourage a family to be their own labor support. There's some fathers or partners to a woman in labor that want to be the primary support person in that labor process. And I love supporting families to be like that and to educate them, to have the information they need to do that. And I'm still happy to be in the room, but hands off, and helping just coach from a distance if that's what somebody is more comfortable with. I'm just checking vitals and making sure the baby's safe and everybody's fine. And I also really love to coach fathers to catch the baby if that's what they want to do, or cut the cord. That's really important to me, to support the bonding of the family. I feel like keeping the family together and intact is one of the most important things you can do to support that baby's life. Mm-hmm. And when the mother feels the integrity of her own birth process and is not violated or compromised by being exploited through interventions, and when a father feels empowered, like he has a role and he is important and he's connecting with his baby more than a doctor would be, I feel like that's critical for a man to feel his role as guardian and the stewardship of the birth of his next generation and his bloodline. Mm-hmm. Then those parents will have a deeper relationship with their child from the very beginning, and that will benefit that child's life, and their life force, I feel like, will be stronger. Like, there are so many subtle energies in a birth room. I call it a rite of passage because I feel like, particularly the woman and baby, it's like their energy is on fire. They're so awake and open for a woman to open enough to let a being through her body is not just a physical process, of course. And that baby as well, it's transforming from never having been on this planet to coming through. So that rite of passage energetically is so powerful and is so on fire energetically that it's a potent time to have as much love in the room as possible, to allow that potency to be filled with love, and for that baby and that birth to be infused with that love energy is something that you can always call on throughout that child's life.
That's beautiful. And even that, and then like the first few years, I think are so important, and it hurts my heart to see people letting like nurseries and stuff raise their children the first couple of years, and only getting to see the child at night and stuff like that. And I believe even in living in the West or whatever, I believe that there are resources there for you to be able to do that if you have to kind of, not have all the money that you want to have, just to stay home with your kid. At least those first couple of years are so important. To kind of talking about the birth, I wanted to ask you about this. So moving in a lot of the spiritualist circles, there's a term that's used, and I want to ask you, because you should have hands-on experience, you would know. They use the term birth trauma. And so as people are dealing with past life regression or anxiety, stuff that happened to them in their childhood, do you know if there's any truth to the whole birth trauma that we have to deal with as adults sometimes?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So I have studied this a bit, and I have seen some things that have led me to yes, believe that it definitely exists in my understanding. There's a term that's really fascinating. It's called limbic imprinting. So LIMBIC, limbic. I believe it's like the limbic part of the brain that's like the more reptilian part of the brain. So it's primal. There's limbic imprinting that happens on your brain as you come through the birth canal when you're born. That imprint becomes a bit of a blueprint that follows you throughout your life, is what I've been taught. There's a fascinating woman who focuses on this and teaches it all over the world. And she's created a movie that's really brilliant called Birth into Being, if anybody wants to check it out. But limbic imprinting is fascinating. And seeing that or understanding that concept really makes you want to, again, have the most gentle and empowering birth for each child and each person that's coming in. Here's an example. So there was one baby that I know that was born, and during her birth process, she was in a hospital, and the doctors had to put, or they chose to put, a fetal scalp monitor on her head. And that actually is screwed into their skull during labor. And so it's a tiny screw that goes in because you can get your pulse out of the top of your head. And doctors will use that when they feel like they can't get the pulse out of the woman's belly because of the position the baby's in. So after that baby was born, for the next 2 or 3 years, she did not want anyone to touch the top of her head. So it's really fascinating. It's like, okay, that's just a physical, imprint, right? If, she had no other reason to have that, feeling why she didn't want anyone to touch her head, but she had a physical trauma from that experience. But there's also been a lot of research that children, as they're being born in their labor, if there's different interferences, right? So say a woman's having a natural labor process, and then a doctor decides to cut an episiotomy and use forceps and pull the baby out quicker than the mother would have naturally pushed the baby out, which sometimes happens for emergency reasons and sometimes is overused and has happened when it's not necessary. Those babies often have a harder time finishing projects in their life as an adult. So there's actually been research that's shown that certain interferences in the labor process create different personality types in adults. Mm-hmm. So I went to one class like that. Another thing to look at, because it happens quite a bit, is cesarean sections.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So one thing that when people are choosing to have a cesarean voluntarily, that families need to remember that in a natural birthing process, yes, your baby is being squeezed, through the birth canal as it's coming through. It's being squeezed, right, by the muscles, the woman's muscles, as it comes out. But that squeezing actually squeezes the baby's chest and squeezes the baby's heart, right? It's squeezing the whole body as it's coming through. So squeezing the chest actually helps the baby clear its lungs. Squeezing the baby's heart is like giving it its first couple pumps to get it going, right? So that's what you want when your baby's coming through, because it's been in amniotic fluid and water the whole 9 months. It's never breathed air before. So having that squeeze of the chest and the lungs as it's coming through is actually helping the baby open its ability to breathe air for the first time. I could name a whole bunch of effects like that, but those two are probably the most obvious. So coming through the birth canal is actually biologically perfect to help a baby be born. When a woman is cut open and the baby is just lifted out of the abdomen of a woman, none of these biological functions occur. And so there is a lack of, well, first of all, the statistics of a baby being born in a C-section are less healthy than babies being born vaginally because of that, right? They're always taking more time to kind of come around and to start breathing and to looking as strong. Obviously, overall, C-sections can be a very healthy option, but the statistics are lower than a vaginal birth.
What about even, because I know you're studying that, like, what about even where that name comes from? I'm sure you've looked into that. That's insane.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, my understanding, it was like a doctor, right? It was named after.
It was supposedly one of the Caesars was going through and had an order to cut the women open to take their babies out and and to kill them or whatever. And that's insane that we still use this old these old world.
Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten that. Yeah. That's absolutely right. And you could keep going in that direction with the conversation, just to say also a lot of the modern gynecological care for women is actually based on work that was developed during World War II by the Nazis on Jewish prisoners, that they did a lot of medical experimentation, and a lot of those techniques that they came up with are still being practiced today.
Yeah. It's
a serious thing. And, there's a reason I'm impassioned about the field, and it's the beauty, but it's also, there is a lot of exploitation happening, particularly in hospital processes that are being overused. And the reason why, I'll tell you right now, is because it's a huge money-making scheme. And birth is the number one moneymaker in any hospital. The reason why is because women are healthy going in. They're not sick. It's not like a cancer patient or somebody who's like missing an arm who needs a surgery. It's a healthy person going in to have a healthy baby. And the World Health Organization says 92% of all women do not need interventions, that they're going to have a healthy baby. There's only about 8% of women that really need a cesarean section and, extreme interventions. So all the other women that are getting those things, I mean, right now they say there's about 30% of women in the United States having cesarean sections, for example. So the extra, 22 women per every 100 that are having these things, the hospital is making a huge amount of money off of them. And we don't need to talk numbers, but it's thousands and thousands of dollars. And when things like cesarean sections are being done inappropriately, then it often leads to a baby ended up in the intensive care unit for days or weeks, and that's thousands and thousands more dollars. So there is a agenda. And it doesn't mean our doctors are bad people. They're good people. But there's just a protocol in a hospital that's actually created by insurance companies that are not healthcare providers and are not doctors. And those insurance companies are run by business people trying to make a living, right? So the point is to not blame, but to educate yourself and understand who you're working with and what the agenda and what the intentions there are. And that's been a big process for me, helping women and seeing women in their birth processes when they don't have the experience that they want, when their babies perhaps are being taken away from them, when they want to keep them together and stay close, or when they're given surgeries when they actually just wanted a few more hours to try to push their baby out naturally, but a doctor maybe said it's time and he has to go.
Yeah, he has to go for the day. So he wants to rush it up. That's insane. Yeah. Well, Hope, I know you got to run. I've enjoyed hanging out with you. Thank you so much for coming on. And
it's been a pleasure.
It's just there's so many more questions, especially segues and stuff, man.
I know we should do a part 2.
We totally should, because I like to get into some of the esoteric understandings behind it. And a perfect segue would be like talking about how the whole birth trauma thing, and because we like to talk about aliens and spirits and interdimensionals and stuff like that on here. So a lot of people are saying that the whole alien abduction phenomenon is people reliving their birth trauma. And so you're laying in a bed, you wake up and you see these people looking over you with scaffolds and things looking over you. And they're saying that it's trauma from from
Yep.
being birthed and stuff. So that's
Yep.
a whole nother segue, but promise me you'll come back on and we'll have that conversation. That'd be something good to get into.
No, it sounds interesting. It's been really a pleasure talking with you too. So yeah, it would be fun to do.
Definitely. So everybody go and check out Hope Medford. You can check out all of her work at hopemedford.com. I'm pretty sure you could just type her name in on anywhere.
Can do. And Derek, I brought these are my two latest CDs. This is Purify, and this one is Bring to Light. So I got you. If you want to check out my music, these are my two latest. So enjoy.
Definitely.
They're on there.
I still have to get into your latest one, Bring the Light, but Purify was amazing. Thank you. I got to get into the new one. Definitely. So
I Return is on there. So you'll get to check out the remix.
Such a blessing.
Of that song that you helped inspire.
Thank you so much, Hope. It was so much fun.
All right. Take care. Peace.
All right. Bless. Thank you. Hope Medford, ladies and gentlemen. Medicine for the People. Soul Tribe. Good people, man. I had the pleasure of meeting them. I want to say 2014, I think it was. That's the date's coming up. Seen them in New Orleans. Got to meet Hope. It was fun. We had a great time. And it was when they were still kind of, making their way up the ranks. And we were at the show where they opened up for Soulja on the tour. And there were so many people who had no idea who Medicine for the People was. And they're like, hey, who's these guys that are opening up? I was like, dude, they're better than Soulja, because we didn't go there to see Soulja. So it was a blessing for us, because after that show, I became a Soulja fan. So it's kind of vice versa. But it was awesome seeing people who traveled to see them, because they were like totally, Medicine Tribe from like day one, traveling to see them. But then seeing all the people who were like blown away, because if you're a Soulja fan and you check out Medicine for the People and not even know who they are, you're blown away. Definitely check out their work. And we say Medicine for the People, but man, I know they have a revolving cast, but Hope is such a part of that group, man. And to watch her tap in to the spirit realm and play her drums, play the djembe, play the percussions, and sing, man, it's a beautiful encounter. And a lot of people are having their awakenings through their music, and a part of that's influenced and infused into my work. So I get those messages all the time where people are like, dude, I listened to your album 333. It took me to new levels. And even with the song that we have together, I Return, we did a collab feature together. And even from that song, like, people are just like, oh my God, I'm taken to new levels. I'm in tears listening to your music. So it's awesome that I'm able to facilitate that in the lives of other people, because Hope and her message and her music, and the same thing with LCOB, the Lost Children of Babylon, like that stuff did the same thing for me. So it's so cool to be able to pay that forward and to put out art and put out work like that, that's just facilitating awakening around the globe. So many people are interconnected, and so many people in this Soul Tribe family that we have, and we're connected by spirit and with intention, and anything that brings about healing. You guys know we're about that, like healing, and healing through music. Come on. I mean, you guys know that I deal with a lot of people coming out of religion and out of Christianity, and I hope I didn't scare her off with any of the Bible talk. So I don't think I did, but some people are weird about that. But a lot of people are coming out of that, and they want to make sense of stuff. And I'm telling you, in the South, you start talking about goddess energy, you start talking about the divine feminine and stuff. That stuff's not being discussed down here at all. So it's beautiful that I have a lot of people locally who listen to this, and they'll be able to at least research it after this. Even me hearing it for the first time, I was like, goddess, what is that? We don't, in the Bible Belt, man, it's not encouraged to talk about that stuff. So I'm glad that there's an awakening happening. I'm part of it. You guys are a part of it. If you're listening this far into the show, you've heard something that has caught your attention, or there's something that resonates deep down within you, and you're a part of the family too. And so you have questions, you have the answers as well within, and you want to be a part of something greater than yourselves, which we all are. And so with that being said, man, I'm going to say, again, a huge thank you for everybody supporting my work through Patreon. That's the number one place to get anything that I put out. My music, the podcast, to get the updates. We got, a special Facebook group that's only for people who are part of the membership over there. And I just put out a new song. Thank you guys for the kind words. I'm reading the comment section even as we do this, and so there's a lot of love for the new music, and a lot of love for hope in this chat room as well. You guys are awesome. But getting a lot of feedback on that new song, Affa, AFFA is the name of the song, and you got to hear the full song to actually understand what it means. And hopefully I kind of stepped out on a limb there, but I think that it was done in a really intricate way, and was struggling over a name, and that's the name I picked. And you have to hear the song. It'll be out to the general public sometime next year. So Patreon's a way for you guys to hear new music before it even comes out to the general public, and you guys get access to it. There's a bunch of new music over there. So with that being said, I'm going to say peace and shalom. We also have merch available. I got a bunch of merch on my website. People, want to support. They want to rock the gear. We got a bunch of merch over there at TruthSeekah.com. Head on over there, buy some merch, and support the work. I love each and every one of you guys. So with that, again, peace and shalom. Blessings on top of blessings. I love y'all. Peace.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.